Hi, good morning. Rav Moshe, can you hear me? Can you hear me over there?
I hear you.
Okay. So can we begin? Okay, Reb Dave, L'chaim, L'chaim. Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Side, this is Menachem Nissel. Here I am live, my little bunker here in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. Today we're going to learn a very important sugya, the sugya of dreams. And it begins at a Gemara in Brachos Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. So just to give a little bit of background over here, if you just finished Daf Yomi Brachos, so you'll remember that there is actually 3 pages of Gemara that goes through the subject of dreams. I have a tremendous chus. Once upon a time, about 10 years ago, I was in the shir of Moshe Shapiro, Tzaddik Zechron Livracha, and he taught us this parak, the 9th parak of Brachos. Literally, I just checked this out last night. I have 2.
Hey,
Let me just mute everybody, if it's possible to, everyone could please go on mute. I don't know how to do this myself. Hold on, I don't even know how this works.
Yeah, I'm taking care of it.
Okay, so I literally have 1,200 pages worth of notes on the 9th parak, and most of the time he was talking about the subject of dreams. So literally, we had months and months and months where he spoke about the subject of dreams. During that period of time, by chance, I happened to visit Moscow. The reason why I was there is that my daughter, Chava, Baruch Hashem, she now has 7 children. She's living in Carmiel. She still speaks pretty good, pretty fluent Russian. But that back then, she was working for Eitz Chaim, and she was a teacher in the Eitz Chaim school, working with, though you can't say kids of the derech in Moscow, because all the kids were kids from broken homes. She was taking care of them. And while I was there, I spoke for a Jewish university in Moscow. And afterwards, a young man comes up to me. His name was actually Boris. It sounds like a cliche, but we stayed in touch afterwards. Rabbi, do you interpret dreams? Okay, I'm not going to do the Russian accent, but he asked me, do I or do I not interpret dreams? So I just went with the flow, and I said, just by chance, I happen to have spent the last few years studying how to interpret dreams. So I guess I'm as good as any other rabbi in interpreting dreams. So he asked me the following question. He says, Rabbi, I have the following dream. Every single night, he dreams that he's under the chuppah with the woman that he's about to marry. Now, he was a few weeks away from his wedding, and every single night he has the same dream. He's under the chuppah, and he has a ring, and he's trying to put the ring on the finger. And he says to me, ring does not fit. Okay, ring just does not work out. It doesn't seem to happen. He cannot marry his wife. So he asked me, what does this dream mean? So as we're going to learn in a few minutes, this kind of dream is not the kind of dream that's mentioned in the Gemara, but it didn't take a rocket scientist for me to ask him the following question. I said to him, Boris, is there any reason why you might think that God would not want you to marry this woman? And he says to me, no, he's very nice girl. There's no reason whatsoever. I said, Boris, think hard. Is there any reason why he would not want to marry? He wouldn't want him to marry you. So he goes like, he says, maybe his reason is that girl is not Jewish. So I promise it's a true story. So I said, this is incredible. This is absolutely amazing because, yeah, this is absolutely a sign from God that you should not be marrying this woman. And I took upon myself the responsibility. He actually broke up with her. I for a while, I stayed in touch with him and helped him through this. But this was one of those rare moments where I felt that I went all the way to the other end of the world, ostensibly to visit my daughter, but it was there to break up and into marriage. This is my opening story. We can start learning now. But the bottom line is that I was studying dreams for several years with my Rebbe, Reb Moshe Shapiro. And this, I guess, is what we would call the opening class. So the Gemara begins the Sugya of Dreams in the middle of Nun Hey Amud Beis. Those of you that have the Gemara in front of you, it's basically the 6th or 7th white line. And there it says the following words, and I quote, okay, it begins with basically 7 words. Alma Rav Chisda. So the Rav Chisda is the rabbi that is the opening rabbi for all the discussions of the dynamics of dream. So Rav Chisda begins with the following words. Alma Rav Chisda, Kol Chalayim V'Lo Tvas. Okay, that's the words. Kol Chalayim V'Lo Tvas basically means the following. Kol Chalayim, I don't mind having any dream. V'Lo Tvas, but not a fast. Okay, that's the literal, the word Tvas. So let me read to you word for word the Rashi over here. Rashi explains, and let me read to the Rashi. Kol Chalayimos Yireh Adam. Okay, let man see any dream. Let man see any dream. V'lo yireh echad mi'oisam shu shori b'tanis she'ena toiv. Any dream is good, but not the kind of dream that needs you to fast when you see that dream. So the Achronim read this Rashi b'pashtus and say basically that fasting means a category of dreams that you find in Meseches Tanis, Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis, where there's a list of the types of dreams that you're supposed to fast for. So the simple way to read this Gemara is that dreams are basically good except for bad dreams. What's a bad dream? The kind of dream that you have to fast for. So it's not really a particularly shocking opening to the sugya. There are other mefarshim. The most famous one is called the Beis David. The Beis David says it does not mean the kind of dream what you need to fast for, but any kind of dream is good, except for when you dream that you are fasting. So there's a lot to say about that. You actually have a dream, and in that dream you are fasting. Why that is a bad dream is not for now. I want to talk to you about the Shita of the Aruch. So all the Rishonim over here, the later Rishonim bring the Baal HaAruch. The Baal HaAruch brings a third understanding. I'm going to give you the simple understanding of the Aruch, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the shir teaching you the Mahalach of my Rebbe, Reb Moshe Shapiro, which is absolutely mind-boggling and deep and powerful, and I'm very excited to share it with you. So by the time we're finished, we're going to have 4 different ways of understanding the Hakdama to the 3 blots on the Sugya of Dreams. The first is Rashi Kipshuto, that a person should have good dreams and not bad dreams. The second is the Beis David, you shouldn't dream about fasting. The third is the Baal HaAruch, which I'm going to teach you now. And then we're going to go deeper into a totally new understanding of what the Baal HaAruch is saying. Let me read to you what the Baal HaAruch says. For those of you who are not familiar with the Baal HaAruch, who was the Baal HaAruch? So I have a little bit of a personal reason why I want to share with you some historical background over here to the Baal HaAruch. The Baal HaAruch, he lived between 1035 and 1102. That means he is from the first generation of Rishonim. He lived in Rome, but he studied in Sicily. The reason why I tell you that he studied in Sicily is because I just canceled 3 trips. 2 of them were to America. but I see Benji smiling because he knows the story already. I was in Sicily just 2 months ago on one of these trips where I was the historian. There's not much to say about Sicily except for one famous rabbi called Rabbeinu Matzliach. If you have not heard of Rabbeinu Matzliach, you're okay. He takes up 7 lines in the Art Scroll Rishonim, and in those 7 lines, it says basically the following. Rabbeinu Matzliach is a key figure in the Rishonim because he went to Babylon to study by Reb Hai Gaon. Reb Hai Gaon was the Gadol Hadar at the end of the Gaonim, the last great Gaonim. He went from there and he built a yeshiva in Sicily, and his most famous student was, can you guess, the Baal HaAruch, Reb Nosson from Rome, and the Baal HaAruch studied in Sicily, and then he set up his own yeshiva in Rome. The Baal HaAruch is an important figure because his commentary on the Talmud is in the format of a dictionary where he goes through keywords. So the commentary that we have over here is on the word Taves, which literally means a fast day. And the Baal HaAruch, interestingly, had 4 children, and he writes a very powerful poem. Each one of them died tragically in his own lifetime. And we have the poem that he wrote about what it's like to bury 4 children. And we're coming up to now the story of Rabbi Akiva and the 24,000 Talmidim that died. And just like Rabbi Akiva, after they all died, he continued to build Torah. So the Baal HaAruch, after burying 4 sons, he went on and had a 5th son whose name was Reuven. And he said about Reuven, Yechi Reuven, Ba'al Yamos, let him live. And he lived. And he had children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And one of them was the Tesis Yom Tov, the great Tesis Yom Tov, who was the Rav in the end in Krakow, but was the Rav in Prague. And Tesis Yom Tov, in turn, had many, many children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And one of those is, of course, me, myself, I. Statistically, one of you guys listening is also a Talmud. Yeah, there we go, Reb Eli Loib. It's almost by definition, someone comes from the Tesis Yom Tov. So now you know, Reb Eli, that you also come from the Baal HaAruch, the Talmud of Rabbeinu Matzliach, the Talmud of Reb Hai Gaon. The link to the Gaonim went through Sicily to Rome to the Italian Rishonim. So that I just wanted to throw in. After that, okay, Reb Eli, if you're from the countries as fakers, we need to talk because I'm also from the countries as fakers. And yeah, we need to discuss this. Let's get back to the sheet of the Baal HaAruch. Quote, how does he read the opening line to the Sugya of Dreams? Kol chalayim yesh boi mamoshes. Every dream has got something about it that makes it real. Chutz mechalayim b'sha sheshari b'tanis. Except for dreams when you are going through a fast, because then the pain of the fast will take away the ability of that dream to have any validity. So this Baal HaAruch is quoted a lot, and interestingly, it also appears in the Shaarei Tzion. So I have over here my Dirshu version of the Shulchan Aruch, and this Baal HaAruch comes in, and it's very, very important on a practical level, because if you have a look over here, this is Siman Reish Chaf. One moment, please. Here we go. Hatavas Chalaim V'Ta'anisai. So hopefully you're familiar with this. The Shulchan Aruch brings down, it's based on the Gemara that we're about to see on the next page. Haroya Chalaim, the Nafshay Aguma Alav. This is the Mechaber, quoting the Torah, quoting the Rishonim, quoting our Gemara, that says if you see a dream and you're depressed about that dream, Yativenu ba'apit tzlasa derechilei. Find 3 people that love you, and Yativenu, and make the dream good. All right, turn the dream into something positive, and then he brings down the nusach chalmatava chazoi, etc., etc. Says the Shaarei Tzion, and I quote to you. Hold on. I need to have a middle-aged moment over here. I apologize. Okay. Let's read the Shari Tzion in small little letters over here. He says, Veda, the Isa Gemara. He says, he brings down from the Gemara, Brachas Nun Hey, Kol Chalaim V'lei Taves, Ein Rashi Sham. He brings down our Gemara, the Shari Tzion, a B'tesis Rabbeinu Yehuda, a B'tesis Rosh, Pirshu V'zel L'Sheinai, Kol Chalaim Ra, Sha'adam Roya, Yesh Lidei Galav. You have a bad dream, you should be worried about that bad dream. Chutz, Mechalaim, Shira, Acha Hatanis. If you see a dream after fasting, Lefishiyashav Betanis, Vinitztaer, Machmas Hainu, Yirachalaim Ra. He says the following thing: you just went through a fast, and therefore you are in a state of personal affliction, and therefore your dream has no validity. V'chein parish, Rabbeinu Aruch, Bala Aruch. Umizeh yesh lilmaid. So this is the Aruch, says the Shari Tzion. And from here we should learn. L'kol heichash yesh la'adam tsar gadol. If you're going through tsar gadol, kach roye b'chaleim yachaleim ra, and then you have a bad dream, she'ein lido gila. Don't let it haunt you. Don't let it bother you. If you are going through tsaris, and then you have a bad dream, it has no validity. I'm saying this to you, I'm sharing this to you, because the Chazon Ish, he doesn't quote the Shari Tzion, he doesn't need to go through the Shari Tzion, he quotes himself, he's the Chazon Ish. And in the Kavitz Igros, in his letters, Chelik Beis, the 149th letter, he says about himself that I am prone to nightmares. This is the Chazon Ish speaking. He says, I am prone to nightmares. And he says, and I choose to ignore them based on this Aruch, because whatever it is, life is hard, and therefore I know to ignore it. And the Stipler, who was, as you know, his junior brother-in-law, says that even though he would tell other people to say the Rebbeinu Shalom is that prayer that you say in Birkas Kohanim, which is also coming up, the prayer which you're supposed to say to make dreams turn into something good. He says, but the Chazon Ish himself never said the Rebbeinu Shalom. He never said that insertion. He himself never said it. Now, I heard this from my Rebbe, Reb Moshe Shapiro. Reb Moshe used to say, and he knew this on a personal level, that the Brisker Rav used to obsessively have bad dreams and get three people together and do what's called Hatavas Chalemis. Hatavas Chalemis in the Art Scroll Siddur, if you have a look, this is my early edition of the Art Scroll Siddur, there's a section called Ameliorating Dreams. How cool is that word? Ameliorating Dreams. And apparently the Brisker Rav used to do this all the time. I just wanted to update you, because after the Brisker Rav, who used to be terrified about dreams and do something about it, and then you had the Chazon Ish that also had bad dreams and did nothing about it. So you have Rebbe Yashiv. So I have the sefer over here. The sefer over here is Rebbe Yashiv on Brachos. And Rebbe Yashiv didn't write it. It was written by people in the share, by Rav Kook. And Rav Kook asked him a lot of questions about dreams, and Rebbe Yashiv consistently says to ignore dreams. Everyone should ignore dreams. And in the footnote, it brings down that Rebbe Yashiv dropped a bombshell and said that our whole generation is like the Shari Tzion. The Shari Tzion says that everyone is like what's called someone having just fasted, and therefore you feel a sense of being anxious. He said the whole Dor is anxious. Today we live in a Dor of anxiety, and therefore you can ignore your bad dreams. That's how Rebbe Yashiv paskins. He says if you want, and this of course is psychological, because you can't tell you can't just tell I don't know if somebody comes up to you and he or she is like going crazy because of their dreams, you can't just ignore it, and therefore you can tell them to say the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now, if you live in Israel, I think I'm the only one here who's in Eretz Yisrael at the moment. So you guys on Yom Tov, you had a chance to say the Rebbeinu Shalom and Birkas Kohanim. But here in Israel, we only sing at the end, so there's no place to put it. And Rabbi Yasha says if it makes you happy, that at the very end, when the Chazan, when the Kohanim have finished going whatever they sing that tune at the end, you can finish off by adding the Rebbeinu Shalom. Today I saw that Reb Chaim Kanievsky, he said that you can do the Rebbeinu Shalom during Birkas Kohanim behirhur. You can't use your mouth because you have to focus on the words, and you cannot interrupt the words of the Kohanim, but you can do it through hirhur. The bottom line is that Rebbe Yashiv holds that today all dreams are under the category of the Shari Tzion, his interpretation of the Baal HaAruch. The Baal HaAruch in turn says that a dream after fasting has no validity because the fast creates anxiety. Says Rebbe Yashiv, we're all anxious, and therefore we can all ignore dreams, period. That's what I wanted to share with you in terms of Psak Halacha. Now, we're going to learn in a moment Sefer Derech Hashem, and I'm going to show you that there are 4 categories of dreams according to the Ramchal that apply today. Let me just take another little shluck. But before I do that, I want to share with you one of the categories is called, the lowest category is called the classic dream that every therapist can explain to you, which is the dreams when a person has anxiety or whatever it is. You have crazy stuff going on in your life, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up and you just have these nightmares, and sometimes you have these nightmares day in, day out, and they can be explained by a therapist. I don't mean to be offensive, but when a kala comes up to me and says that she dreams that she's having a date with her chassan, and then suddenly her chassan turns into this evil monster and starts chasing her. So I tell her, you are normal, because this falls into the classic dream that every therapist can explain, which is every natural kala has this inner fear of things going wrong. It's very normal for these things to happen, and you can go ahead and ignore it. Just one more anecdotal story. About 10 years ago, I was in National Yarchi Kala of NCSY in Stamford, Connecticut, and I actually remember where I was standing. Those of you that are Stamford, Connecticut people, so I was that place where they take photographs, just where they have the shul at the very end. This girl, her name was Hannah. She was from Boston, and she came from a very fancy, wealthy home. And she told me that she has a personal therapist, and once a week she meets with a therapist for the purpose of discussing her dreams. What does the therapist make her do? The therapist makes her, every morning when she wakes up, she has these nightmares. The first thing she does is she writes down her nightmares, and she has a little diary of all her bad dreams. She meets with the therapist and they discuss it together. I'm telling you, this is a true story. And I'm so proud of myself with this story. I told this girl, Hannah, I said to Hannah, I said, do you trust me? I'm a rabbi. I have a lot of experience in these things. I was taking a risk. I said, I'm asking you to stay in touch with me and do me the following favor. I said, for the next month, do not go to your therapist. For the next month, follow the Menachem Nissel therapy, which is the split second that you wake up, the first thing you do is start your day. And don't think about your dreams, and don't write anything down. Just go plunge into your day and forget about what you dreamt. And she says, okay, I'll try this. And she did this for a month. By the time the month was over, the nightmares were gone. Her therapist, who I honestly think was a scam artist, because that therapist was taking advantage of this young girl, Baruch Hashem, we're still, just by chance, we're still in touch on Facebook. Those are the days when NCSY still had Facebook. And the bottom line is that that category, the lowest category of dreams, as we're going to see in a moment in Sefer Derech Hashem, can be explained by a therapist, which is nothing more than fears that people are going through, coming out in their subconscious during the clutter of the brain, sorting things through during the middle of the night. Actually, it's not the middle of the night. We know already by now that all these dreams are happening in the last few seconds of your sleep. Shir HaMalis, B'shuv Hashem eshiv asiyayin hayinu kacholmim. When Mashiach comes, it's going to be like a dream. So the Bali Machshava say, just like a dream, it seems like it's going on for hours and hours, but really it's a few seconds. That's how the Geula is going to be. The Geula seems like it's going on forever, but in retrospect, we're going to see it was like a dream. It was actually going very quickly. That is the dreams that happen to you before you wake up, and they are meaningless if they can be explained by your local therapist. Bottom line, the Sefer Ha'arach Kipshuto, the simple pshat, in the way that the Mishnah Berurah, the Chafetz Chaim, learns the Baal Ha'arach, that if you're going through anxiety and then you dream, it has no validity. Now, there's a fourth category, which is, of course, the reason why I'm sitting in front of you, is to give you stuff that you cannot get this information on your own. I heard this from my Rebbe, Reb Moshe Shapiro. I do not believe it's written up yet. Someone has to write up the shurim that we heard in Perek HaRoy. It's not going to be me, but this is something extremely powerful. So first of all, let me just go back and talk about dreams, the klalius, as a general thing. Let's say that you are working in Kiruv, which I'm just seeing who's over here, which I think is everyone. I recognize a bunch of your names, and every single one of you is either in Kiruv or should be in Kiruv, or someone that's involved with working with teens or whatever it is. All of you should have a quick answer to how dreams work. So let's say it's a Q&A answering session with a bunch of teens or college students. You have 2 or 3 minutes to answer the question. You're not going to give a 1-hour share and talk about the Baal Ha'arach. So how do you explain dreams in a few seconds? So this is what I would say. I would say that there's 2 types of dreams. Let's keep it simple. There's the dream that can be explained by your local therapist, which is your fears and anxiety coming through your subconscious into the world of dreams, which are happening the last few seconds before you wake up, and you should ignore them. That would be 99.9% of our dreams. The other 0.1% is what's called a quasi-prophetic dream. A quasi-prophetic dream is real, and it's something that comes from the higher worlds, because when you are asleep, a certain part of you has access to the higher world. So let's say this simply: when you go to sleep, you're 1/60th dead. Translation: your neshama goes to the higher realms and has access to the higher worlds, and therefore you have access to what is going to happen to you in the future in the world of roots. Quick background over here. Everything that happens here in the physical world has its roots in what we call the higher worlds. The higher worlds is obviously Kabbalah, but today in every school they teach Derech Hashem. Derech Hashem does not use Kabbalistic terminology. He talks about the world of action, then he talks about the world of angels, then he talks about the world of the Kisei HaKavod, of the heavenly throne, which in Kabbalah 101 we call the Olam Hasiyah, the Olam HaYetzira, the Olam HaBriya, and he uses very easy, accessible words. But the bottom line is that it is a fundamental belief of Jews that there is a thing called Olamos, higher worlds, and everything that happens down here is its roots up there. So Reb Jacob puts down the Nefesh HaChaim. So the Nefesh HaChaim talks about this consistently throughout the Sefer. So I don't feel guilty. I don't feel I'm going to get one of my friends is going to walk in now and tell me off with Nissel, you're teaching Kabbalah. No, we're going through Sfiras HaOmer, as we speak now. And Art Scroll talks about these things freely when he says, insert the correct sephira over here. So he talks about the spheros over here. Spheros is directly connected to the world of Oilamos, as today everyone knows. It's probably on h.com. The bottom line is that in exactly the same way that if I would take a ball, and I actually did this in an NCSY, actually the last time this question came out in the Q&A, I did this, and I took a ball and I threw it to someone at the other end, and that person caught it. And I said, how did he know how to catch the ball? And the answer is because as a child, he learned the parabolic motion of a ball, and you could see it in motion as it goes across, and he knew how to catch it because he could see exactly where it's going to land by the route it was taken as it was being thrown. So it doesn't make him into a prophet. It just means he understands parabolic motion, and therefore what happens in the world of roots, he could see how it's going to come out in the world of fruits at the very end by the motion. That's what a dream is. A dream is that you see something coming towards you, and as we turn the page, we're going to find out that you can actually direct how this dream is going to come out by how you interpret it. That we're not going to explain today, but the point that we need to know is that the simplest way of understanding dreams is that you see things in motion and you're interpreting the roots coming towards the world of fruits. If you don't like the marshal of parabolic motion, you can talk about the weatherman. Every time you watch the weather, so what are you seeing? You're seeing some person who actually studies how the movement of winds and the movement of rain, and he can say to you, or she, what is going to happen where you are the next hour, the next day, in 3 days' time. What is he or she a prophet? No, just understands movement as it comes towards you. And when you sleep, your neshama has access to that world of things as it comes towards you, and that is what you're seeing when you have a dream of what is going to come in your general direction. Okay, so if I stop there, so that's good enough for an NCSY session, but it's really very dishonest. Why is it dishonest? Because if you look at the next 3 pages in your Gemara in Perek HaRoya, you'll notice that every single dream mentioned in the Gemara has something in common. They are not stories. When you and I have our dreams, we have stories happening. We have this sort of action. There's things happening. There's people talking sometimes. It involves people that we know. It involves places that we know. We dream stories. In the Gemara, we do not have stories. In the Gemara, we have what's called symbols. You dream a symbol about something that you were not thinking about in the last 24 hours. So if in the last 24 hours, let's say for you guys it's Thursday night. If on Wednesday night you went to sleep and you woke up and you had dreamt about a pomegranate, and you had not thought about a pomegranate since last Rosh Hashanah. So what does that mean? That means that you are seeing something, and the Gemara goes through all the 7 species on the next page. What does it mean if you dreamt a fig, if you dreamt a grape, if you dreamt wheat, barley? It goes through. If last night you dreamt about an elephant, there's a whole page that talks about different animals. You dreamt about a horse, a camel. All these things are discussed in the Gemara, but these are things that you not were thinking about. You actually saw something that was symbolic. And I have this book over here, which I wanted to look at yesterday. I didn't have a chance to look at it, but it's called Mishnah Chalomos, and it has 150 pages of dictionary, where you just go like, let a nun, haroya nachash. You dream about a nachash. So then it says over here, barach hanachash mipanav. If the nachash is running away from you, parnasasai mismaetes. So then you're gonna lose your money. If it's coming towards you, you're gonna make money. My neighbor upstairs, Rabbi Hillel Kupperman, when he had his tremendous accident, this happened to him on Sukkot, just before Sukkot, when something fell on him, and he basically almost died. He dreamt about a snake coming towards him, and Reb Chaim Kanievsky told him this: you don't have to worry about this Gemara about Parnasa. It's not what it means, but rather it means that someone had a gzera against you, and that gzera was overturned. The bottom line is that the dreams that have meaning are dreams where you dream a symbol. And what I told you over here, this doesn't really answer anything. So there's got to be something deeper going on. Why is it that the nature of prophetic dreams is where you dream something that is like a symbol, and that symbol stands there, and it's just there, and then afterwards you have to figure it out. Now, I want to point out at the same time that there's another type of dream, which is pure prophecy. We have not had those kind of dreams for 2,000 years. God willing, Mashiach will come and Nevuah will come back. But the point is, when we had prophecy, so there you open up the Sifrei Nevi'im and you see that, for example, Zechariah would dream about a menorah, and then he would interpret that menorah and say what is going to happen to Klal Yisrael. So every single Navi, with the exception of Moshe Rabbeinu, would dream while sleeping, and while they were in the world of sleep, they would have a vision of a thing, whatever there was, a mara, and they would interpret that mara, and that is how dreams come from the higher world down to the lower world. So what is really going on over here? So I want to share with you, I have over here Sefer Derech Hashem, and this is not something that Rav Moshe mentioned, but every single one of you should have learned Derech Hashem at one point in your career. For those of you who are not good with the Hebrew, so today you have the English version. This is when I was 18 years old, this is my Derech Hashem from back then, back in the olden days, when I was 18 in my first year in yeshiva. The bottom line is that if you open Derech Hashem and you have a look at the beginning of the third chelek, so the first section, it talks about Nevuah, and there's a little section where this is Perik Aleph, subsection Vav, Kol Be'inyan Chalaim, he talks about dreams, and he says, Rasa Chochma El Yoina, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so fit, L'chalek Hizman L'shnei Chalakim. Time is divided into two parts. Ha'echad L'poel Abriyos Ve'echad L'muchasam. One where man works and one where man sleeps. V'haina Hayoim V'halayla. Ki Hayoim Hu Zman HaMaisa V'hachalayla Zman HaMenucha. And then, for the rest of the paragraph, he talks about what we call psychological dreams. V'sam b'teva ha'balachayim sheyishnu, etc., etc. I'm just skipping a few lines. During that time, he says man regains their strength. And then he says, when a person is asleep, haskala nacha v'sheketes, the intellect, the seichel, switched off. Rak hadimyain levadai yifal. All that's left working while you are asleep is your imagination. So here, I just want to say for my other Rebbe Revolba, he's very excited that the concept of imagination is spoken a lot by Chazal, all the way down to Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, way before the Freud and his friends came along and developed the subconscious and how the imagination works. And he says over here, he says, love min ha'adim v'hashanim ha'olim al-moach min ha'luchis v'ativis min ha'machalim. Depends on the food that you ate before. Those of you that have a heavy meal before you go to sleep, so you're going to be prone to having these dreams. V'zeh inyan ha'chalemis asher l'chol b'nei adam. So he says, 99.99% of human beings have dreams that come from the imagination. that is on full throttle while you are asleep, and all these crazy things that can be explained, connected with the imagination and the subconscious. And then he goes and says, but there's another category, which he breaks into two. And then he says, when a person's asleep, hanefesh ha'elyona shezacharni, which we call the neshama, he says, tinatik tsas va'esas man mikasher gufanim. Your neshama disconnects at a certain level from its normal position and goes up to a higher place. He says, whatever, the neshama has access. And then he says it has access to two types of malachim. Malachi Kabbalah or Shadim, right? So we're not going to talk about the Ramchal talks a lot about demons. Shadim has access to Shadim, and that's what we call nightmares. This is old-fashioned nightmares from Shadim. We're not going to talk about those type of dreams, but that again is something that he explains. This comes from the world of Shadim, and they are mixed with all kinds of garbage and rubbish. He goes on to say you shouldn't take them too seriously. But then there's another one which comes from a proper malach, and that is a dream that is clear, and it all the b'dimyon, and you see it with the power of your imagination. In other words, these dreams are still the imagination actively. And then he goes on and he concludes and he says, Haneshama nimsheches ara dimyon. The neshama then reaches out with the encounter that it has with the malach to the dimyon. And then in the end, he says, and the highest form of this is called chalemes hanavua, which means that basically you have 4 categories in this little shtickle from the Ramchal. Lowest is 99.99%, which the Chazon Ish says every dream in our generation is just our anxieties of the fears that we have during the day coming out. And it's some of you may know this. If you go to sleep on a Shabbos afternoon with a full meal, you're more likely to have dreams. And those things can all be explained by a therapist. Then you have 3 categories of spiritual dreams. Number 1 is the lowest form, is when your neshama has access to Shadim and Malachi Kabbalah. Then higher than that is the theoretical possibility that once in a lifetime that you have access to a pure dream from a higher malach. And then finally, you have Nevuah, which is not for the last 2,000 years. He could have put in a 5th category, which is Nevuas Moshe Rabbeinu, which has his dimyon cannot be explained in the same way, which I can't go through Moshe Rabbeinu's unique situation, but that is technically speaking a different type of a nevuah. So fundamentally, so let's just go over the bottom line over here. We find over here that Michael Friedman wants to know if dreaming is more intense before you die. Absolutely. I can't go into this, but before a person dies, in general, you have access to the higher worlds, and therefore you have a certain clarity as well. But what I want to share with you is that what we have learned together from this Ramchal is a key to how dreams work, which is the word dimyon, which is imagination. So you have over here roots in the higher worlds, the bottom, which where everything is, and in between, the thing that switches it, the switch is the Kayach HaDimyon working on a symbol. The Kayach HaDimyon working on a symbol, that's what we're learning over here in Sefer Derech Hashem. So how exactly does the Dimyon work? The imagination is an incredible thing. The Rambam says, Hadimyon Kli Hasechel. The intellect, the raw intellect, needs the imagination to be able to access the physical world around us. Which means, let's take a simple example. If I do a math problem, if the math problem can be solved by a computer, by a calculator, it's not part of this world. I do whatever it is, 9 times 9 times 9. That is not something that is part of the physical world. Just a question of putting it into a computer, But if I want to do a math problem where I'm solving something that is new, whatever it is, I'm working on the accounts of my business. So that's part of this world, and I'm doing mathematics on a practical level. So there, I need to use koyach hadimyon, right? Comparing one thing to the other thing. Once something goes from the world of pure intellect and enters into the physical world, everything that we do, we're using our imagination to be able to process things. You can only figure something out through the power of familiarity. If you are in a new city, so you navigate things using your imagination of how things should be and how things should work out. So I want to ask you a question. Is the imagination a good thing or a bad thing? So from what I just said, it's a great thing, okay? It's a wonderful thing. The imagination allows me to be creative, problem solving. You have coronavirus, how should we deal with it? So you leaders, both political and in the medical world, are using their imagination on full throttle. And the world of art and culture and music and art, poetry, it's all imagination. The Beis HaMedrash, the world of Psak Halacha, it's all imagination. How do you deal with Ben Adam L'Chaveiro? How do you understand the person next to you, your spouse, your children, your neighbor? It's the power of imagination. Everything is dimyon. But the other hand, we also know that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, in his famous poem, when I say famous poem, it's quoted a lot in the letters of Yisrael Salanter, begins with a poem which could be translated as an ode to the imagination. He starts off with the famous words, Ha'adam chashi b'dimyona, you're set free with the imagination, va'asa b'muskalu, but you're tied in by the intellect. The problem is that the same imagination can be destructive. If I think that I am Superman, let's leave me out of it. Some teenage kid in Chicago jumps out of a window. His last words are, I'm Superman. Some child, this is actually a true story, in South Florida, jumps into the water, and her last words are, I don't know how to speak Spanish. I am going to find Nemo. Those people are using their imagination to literally destroy themselves. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in, people live in destructive, imaginary worlds. This is not the purpose of today's class, but what's the difference when the imagination is the kliya sechel, is how we function in this world, to when it becomes, in the words of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, ha'oyev hara halazeh, this evil, evil, evil enemy called the imagination that today has basically destroys all of society. Any person who has access to television, internet, whatever it may be, has a distorted dimyon, and the relationships that we have are flawed, and our decision making is flawed. What's the difference? Where does it become one and the other? My Rebbe Moshe Shapiro compared the imagination to a mythical beast that you can ride on, and if you have it in your hands, it can take you where you want, as fast as you want, with as much power as you want. It is incredibly, incredibly powerful. But if you let go for 1 second, you let go of the reins, the beast will turn round and will devour you. Finished. It's over with. What is that moment when the imagination turns from being your best friend to your bitterest enemy? The beast that can give you power and strength and speed to the beast that devours you. And the answer is, I don't know if anyone wants to type out the answer, but the answer boils down to a very simple and powerful idea. And that is, the answer is that moment that you leave reality and you step into an imaginary world and you make that into a pseudo-reality. That is the moment, as my Rebbe says, that is the moment that you cease to exist. That's the moment that you are no longer part of this world. And a Hollywood marriage, to quote Shrek, Okay, Hollywood marriages never last long because each side is living in an imaginary world. You don't know who you are. You are your own projected imaginary person. The person you fall in love with is not a real person either. The two of you are creating your imaginary world, and it's not anchored in any form of reality whatsoever. So what does this mean in terms of the world of dreams? Just I'm going to jump a little bit, looking at the clock, I jump a little bit to show you where I'm going with this. A Navi, all he does to become a Navi is work on his imagination. Because a Navi is going to dream a symbol, and his imagination has to find the total, complete reality in that symbol so that he can absolutely discern 100% what is the Ratzon coming from the higher worlds. A Navi Sheker is not capable of doing this. Just on an anecdotal level, there was a story going back 20 years ago. There was this guy here in Yerushalayim that was able to predict people's future. He held himself as a Kabbalist, he was making money out of it, he was getting everything right. The case came to Rabbi Yashiv. Rabbi Yashiv made a few inquiries. One of the things they found about him is he had a television. Rabbi Yashiv said the guy is a fake, total fake, and he didn't explain himself, but the pshat is very simple, is that the moment that you watch TV, you are going to have access to a distortion of the imaginary world. You can no longer take information and anchor into the proper reality over here. Just want to see the chat over here. What's the difference between dreams of Nebuah? Okay, so let me get there step by step over here. Let me get this step by step. How do dreams come down from the higher worlds down to the lower worlds? Passing through the symbol, access to the imagination. What's the key that's going on behind the scenes? Why does it have to be that way? So listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you now is very, very important. I know this sounds like this is Kabbalah 101, but I'm just using the Kabbalistic terminology, then I'll use terminology that is much simpler and everyone can understand this. When Hashem created the world, the foundations of the foundations, Hashem created the world from the highest of the highest and brought the world all the way down to the lowest of the lowest. In the language of Hashem's name, he started with the highest Yud, the Hey, the Vav, all the way down to the lowest Hey. As things come down, level to level, sphere to sphere, as they say in Kabbalah, he uses a system called Oiros v'Kalim, literally light and vessels. Light and vessels just is another way of saying something very spiritual and very elevated. If you want to bring it down, it needs something to contain this. Okay, Reb Dave, thank you very much. He brought me this mug over here, all the way from Ottawa, Canada. This mug over here contains what's left of my coffee. I love coffee. I don't want the mug, but you can't have access to the coffee without this mug. The R is the coffee, the mug is the kli. It allows you to have access to things. Then every level down, the R becomes a little bit more accessible and the kli becomes more and more physical until the last R and kli is the rain coming through the clouds, so to speak, and having access to this physical world. Another example of Oiros and Kalim is the language of the Maharal of Prague, which is really the Ramban. Throughout the writings of the Ramchal, he talks constantly about what's called Tsura and Chayma. Tsura is the R, Chaymer is the Kli. One of the examples is also a marriage of male and female. In Kabbalah, the male is the Tsura, and the female is the Chaymer, that is the Kli that takes the male and turns it into something accessible. Another example is neshama and guf. Perfect example. A guf is this magical kli, mafli lases, this awesome kli that can accept a neshama from the highest of highest down into this physical world. The bottom line is that everything comes from the higher worlds down into the lower worlds using this process called something spiritual that is a kli to accept it. In the world of intellect, Iris and Kalim is what we call seichel and dimyon. It's exactly what it is. Seichel, pure intellect, belongs to the higher worlds. It's useless on its own here in the physical world. You can't live your life like a calculator. The seichel needs the feminine dimyon, the imagination, to be able to deal with the world that's around us. In the world of sleep, where the dimyon is set free, the dimyon, if it can access the information correctly, can take things from the higher world and bring it down into a way that we have access to it. Unfortunately, here again, we all know this, 99% today of the dimyon, access to anything, will distort. Not only distort, in the world of dreams, I can't go into this into detail, it will lower it to the lowest of the lowest. Krishma al-Hamita, if you look carefully, everything we're doing when you say, some of you are going to be doing this very soon, Krishma al-Hamita, Hashem, allow my imagination to take the access that it has to the higher world and not to lower it to the lowest Hihurim Rhyme and the things that you say in Hamapil, that you have access to things. And unfortunately, bad dreams happen, spiritually bad dreams happen by what's called the imagination being improper and taking the R and turning it into something improper. So that is the imagination anchoring reality into places of darkness. The Navi, he uses his imagination perfectly to have access to the higher world. He can see, Zachariah can see the menorah, know exactly what it means. Daniel can see the Daled Malchus in terms of statues, know exactly what it means. The Nevi'im had the ability to use their dimyon perfectly. And then you have people like us, regular people, and there, the dimyon that we have it needs tremendous mazel, tremendous siyata d'shmaya, to be able to have access to information and to bring it down in the proper way. Let's now come back full circle and show what Reb Chisda said. Remember how this class began. I was going to tell you the Bala Aruch, according to Reb Moshe Shapiro, the way he understands it. It is the opening line of the sugya. It is how everything begins. Reb Chisda comes along and says, all dreams are good, except for Chalaim, that is Taves, that is a fast. So how does Reb Moshe explain it? Based on everything we've said in the last 40 minutes. What does he explain? He says the methodology of a dream that is called Toiv, that is working functionally. A dream is the step called higher world coming down, Iris Kalim coming down into what's called the lower world through a symbol. The symbol is accessed by the dimyon and then anchored into physicality. Says the Aruch, it can only work if the dimyon can anchor things into physicality. But what happens if there's no physicality out there? What's that? That's the definition of a fast. The taves, the tvas, that the Gemara is talking about is Yom Kippur, the fast. On the fast, you can't have a regular dream because there is no physicality for you to anchor your imagination from the symbol into the physical world. Let's just say this in the language of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, we become angels. In Yom Kippur, we ourselves are, so to speak, in the higher realms. On Yom Kippur, our physicality is not grounded in this world, and therefore, basically, I'm going to use the language that my Rebbe said. Z'makakel et ha'marechet kesheneshama lo mitparneset mehaguf. This is poetic language. There's a kilkul of the system when the neshama is not really being mitparnes, it's not really having access to the physical world through the guf, because the guf on a holy fast day like Yom Kippur is no longer down here. If it's up there, then the whole system is not working. These opening lines is the secret of dreams. In just 4 words, the Chalaim system works as long as it has a dimion that can take the image from the higher world and anchor it into the guf. That's when it works properly. Otherwise, it's not going to work properly. So we learned over here an incredibly deep understanding of the Sefer Aruch. It was the 4th and final mahalach in the introduction to dreams. The first 2 was in Rashi. Rashi says that you want to have a good dream, not a bad dream. A bad dream are the dreams in Maseches Tanis, or whatever that means, to dream about yourself fasting. Or we learned the Shari Tzion, which is the Mishnah Berurah, which is the simple pshat in the Aruch, that any dreams that come in a state of anxiety have no meaning. But now we have this incredibly powerful Yesodistic understanding of how dreams work, is that dreams are a process of a step, of basically 4 steps. You have the roots coming down into an image that is accessed by the dimyo. When it's done correctly, it is anchored into the guf. If there's no guf for it to meet, then the dream's not going to work. I can't go through this now, but we're now going into Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Rosh Chodesh Iyar is definitely what's called work in process. It's a sphera. In Sefer Yetzirah, it's the letter Vav. So the last month was the letter Hey. We're now entering into the letter Vav. The Vav is always a connection. It connects Nisan to Sivan. It connects Pesach to Matan Torah. It is going from, in a sense, the world of coming out of Egypt, where everything was given to us by Kodesh Baruch Hu, to a wedding day where we anchor all that spirituality into the physical world. I just want to say from here in Yerushalayim, HaKadosh, I give you all my biggest bracha over here, that in these difficult days, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us Siyata Shmaya, that we anchor everything correctly, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do it. All the anxieties and all the challenges and all the difficulties that we're going through, that Hashem gives us the koach to use our dimyon, to bring it out on a practical level so we can do His ratzon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should mizaka that ratzon should be His ratzon, and your ratzon and my ratzon to do what's right should bring together the Geula Shalema. We have a few hours left of Nissel. Technically speaking, it really starts on Friday night. Hashem, listen, that's the best time to bring the Geula, still in Chodesh Nissel. If not, we'll take it B'chol Yom She Yavo, that He will come as Hashem. Thank you all for listening, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give you all just bracha and atzlacha in all different directions. Kol tov, and thank you for listening. Shkoyach Rav Moshe Freilich, again, please record this for me and send me the recording. Take care, everyone, and all the best.